Hogwarts Legacy, biggest game of 2023 by like every single metric. Okay, like not only was it discussed more than like any other game, but it also sold more copies, drove tons of engagement. Like it was just huge. We all know that it was huge. And since its release, it's been kind of quiet. A lot of people have been waiting maybe for a DLC announcement. Oh, are we going to get some like Quidditch brought to the game or something? Everybody's been kind of waiting patiently to see what's next. And I've been following them. I am signed up for their employment emails. So they send me emails every time they're hiring new people so that I can see if they ever hire somebody that's doing like live service stuff. Cause I'm really worried about that, especially after all the interviews of the executives and stuff. And they're like, ooh, we want to make all of our franchises live service. I'm like, oh God, are they going to turn Hogwarts Legacy 2 into a live service? Haven't seen any evidence of that so far. All of the job postings are for like character artists, senior character artists, stuff like that. A lot of character artists, okay? So I haven't seen any worrying signs or anything as of yet. Hopefully they're actually going to just let them do whatever they're doing and they're just telling investors that they're going to do everything live service or something. But other than that, it's been like pretty quiet. They've just been quietly chugging away, working on whatever they're working on. And we got a summer update a month or so ago, maybe 2 months ago at this point. It was like late May, early June, sometime in there. They did a summer update where they brought a few features here and there, but there's still some stuff that's obviously missing. For me, the biggest frustration is that there is no season toggle. So you can't, even after you finish the game, you can't go to winter, you can't go to fall, you can't change the season, except you can in photo mode, but you can't do it in the actual video game itself while playing, which is frustrating because I love playing Hogwarts Legacy in the winter sections. I think the snow over the castle is beautiful. I love the fall stuff they did with Halloween, but you can't manually change it. So there's little things like that that would be an easy feature to add to get people excited that they have not brought. And some people are like, oh, it's just because they have all hands on deck working on the next game. They don't have time to do that. But we did find out something interesting about Hogwarts Legacy specifically that could explain where features like that are, or rather are not, if that makes sense. That actually came, ironically enough, from a report by Jason Schreier on a game that was not very successful. It was the discussion on what happened with Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League. Now, funnily enough, this article dropped on June 6th. We were at Summer Game Fest when this article dropped, and the day after, or no, I think it was actually hours later, we were at Summer Game Fest and we saw Jason there and he's walking around. Funny story about Jason. He's like tiny, okay? I stand at like 6 foot. He's like here. Maybe not quite that. He's like here. He's a very little dude. He's just like a little guy that walks around with his big backpack and destroys whole companies like it's nothing. You know, I am Jason, destroyer of worlds. That's basically who he is. You don't mess with him. All of these game devs, I'll just say, like, I won't name like a lot, like any specific names, but some of the devs I spoke to and like had drinks with and got lunch with and stuff, a lot of them had very specific journalists that they knew off the dome, you know, that they called out by name. And they're like, if I ever see that person, I'm going to want to slap them because they worked on a game that the journalist reported on and that they got bad press over and stuff. So it's always funny to see game devs interact with some of these journalists and even YouTubers that cover games negatively because they, you know, they talk about it. They've seen those reports and stuff. And they don't have great feelings about it. So it's always really awkward. So seeing Jason Schreier walk past game devs who are like scared of him because they're worried he's going to like say something about their game or report on something about their game, it's pretty funny. I will say there was one game developer I spoke to that was frustrated he was allowed to be there because they thought that they said something off the cuff where they were like, he's basically destroying this industry by reporting on all this stuff. It was just funny. Anyway, having said that, he dropped this article like hours before. And so it was the talk of the town. Like everybody at SGF was scrolling on their phones, reading the article that Jason had just put out as he's walking around Summer Game Fest and everything. And it was pretty interesting. But in this article, he describes specifically what happens with the team, because of course he describes how they revealed that this lost $200 million. It's a huge problem for them, and this came after the explosive success of Hogwarts Legacy the year before. So a lot of eyes were on this to pop off, and then it was a colossal failure and all of that. But the particularly interesting thing about this is that he describes, how the vision's morphed and how all of this changed. But as it goes on, there is discussion of where they're at now. At the very end, the second to last paragraph, many of the studio's employees are now helping to develop a new director's cut version of Hogwarts Legacy. At the same time, according to people familiar with the matter, the studio leaders are looking to pitch a new single-player game which would return Rocksteady to its roots. And TD Cowen analyst Doug Kreutz said, I think they'll definitely get another at-bat, hopefully with something more aligned with their demonstrated talents. He said that most of the team, or many of the studio's employees are working on a director's cut of Hogwarts Legacy, which we previous to this article didn't know was happening. This is the first breaking news of that happening. What I suspect is going to be there is that they're doing a big Hogwarts Legacy relaunch, maybe even by the end of this year, release it in the holiday season. And they could do a big game of the year, because all they have to do is point to one Game of the Year award, or most likely, according to this phrasing, they're going to do a director's cut version of Hogwarts Legacy, where basically they'll relaunch it. They'll unlist the old version of the game and sell this new version for $70. And in it will be all sorts of quality of life improvements. Maybe they offer it for a $10 upgrade if you already bought the game. Easy peasy, easy money. But they'll offer that, and you'll be able to get probably the seasonal toggle. They'll bring that to the game so you can play through that. Maybe they bring a couple of new quests to the game. Maybe they revamp the character creator to make it so you don't, all the characters don't just look like siblings. Hopefully they fix some of the loading screen stuff. Well, not loading screen, but the loading circles going between points of interest. The game is still relatively buggy and a little stuttery, so hopefully they can fix that. There's all sorts of cool things that they could do, revamp the arena modes so you can go and fight high level bosses and stuff there in a boss rush. There's cool stuff they could do. And if they come along, they release it for a $10 upgrade with other graphical enhancements and improvements and stuff, I think people would eat it up. Maybe new spells. I don't know how well that could balance, because if anything, there's kind of too many spells right now, because they have so many quick cast menus and stuff that you swap between dynamically. It works pretty well, but there's just a lot there. So I could see them revamp that, maybe revamp the room of requirement, whatever customization stuff, and maybe the sim stuff. You could customize that to brew potions more efficiently. So there's all sorts of little things that they could add and change for a re-release of the game, which, let's be honest, is still going to sell buku bucks. It's going to be super popular. People are going to eat it up because the game is just a solid game, and it's in a franchise that people love. And no matter how many people tell those fans that they're bigots for loving it, they still just love the franchise, and they're going to eat it up. They're going to eat it up. The other thing that's also happening, that this is a deep cut, and this might not happen. Okay, but I want you to hear me out on this, okay? There's another big thing about to happen in the world of Harry Potter. A pretty big thing, okay? They are going to do an expansion to Universal Studios Orlando. It's called Epic Universe. It's another gate. So they've got Universal Studios, and then they've got Islands of Adventure. I think are the two ones. And so they've got these two big parks, but they're going to be releasing a third that represents a multi-billion-dollar investment. Okay, this is a huge thing. And in this next big park, they're doing Celestial Park. They're doing all these big expansions. They're doing a whole park dedicated to How to Train Your Dragon. They're going to do another section of the park devoted to their old school horror movies. So it's going to be a whole theme park focused around old school Universal monsters and stuff. And apparently it's technologically ridiculously advanced. And they're going to be releasing Ministry of Magic. Now, with this is where I think there's potentially a connection between their park ambitions and this director's cut. Because again, the idea with so much of what Warner Brothers is trying to do now is unifying their films, the theme park stuff, and their video game stuff all together. So when one thing happens for the theme parks, you're also hitting it from another angle with the video games. You're hitting it from another angle, maybe with some a movie trailer or announcement or something. You want to have all of these things kind of working together to just drown fans of this content in so many offerings that they just have to throw money at you. And what this new gate is going to bring is basically the Paris and Fantastic Beasts version of the Wizarding World. So I wouldn't be surprised if they add the ability to like travel to the Ministry of Magic just as a quick, like, oh, you transport there through the Floo Flames or whatever, and you get to go and visit and walk around, and they set it up as like a little teaser for the sequel, because this part of the Wizarding World is going to bring that to the parks. So I wouldn't be surprised if we see something like that happen. Speaking of this spot right here, this is Ollivanders. If you go to Universal Studios Orlando and you go into Ollivanders, I've been there. We went in and there were a bunch of other little kids there. Like, they were children, okay? Like this age, 6, 7, 8-year-olds. And what happens is you go in there, there's like 10, 15 people allowed in at a time. And then the Mr. Ollivander, or whoever he plays as an employee, he selects one of the children who gets to come up, and they select a wand for them in real time with like cool special effects and magic effects. So like, you know, he gives you one wand and says, okay, cast Leviosa, and you do it. And then they have boxes fly out of the shelves, or they have smoke appear and loud noises and lights flickering and all sorts of cool stuff. It's really fun. But he's supposed to select like a child. And I was there with children, not my own, but like there were other kids there. The old man, for some reason, picked me out of the line and asked me to come up and said, you know, whatever his line is, like, oh, you look like you need a wand, and brought me up, and I did the whole thing. And then he selected the wand for me based on that, which was quite funny. And I felt kind of bad, I felt really bad, because I was like, why did you pick me and not the children? But okay. But it was still very fun. So I recommend you go there, and who knows, maybe you'll get a wand selected for you, and you'll make a bunch of little children jealous because you were selected over them. But having said that, I had a great time. It was a good time. But I do think that they're going to do something to tie in the Ministry of Magic with this director's cut, because it's just too perfect of a synchronization of this live or of this director's cut update and this big relaunch, not even relaunch, big launch of a new Harry Potter world. So, I mean, just think of it, because then they can be like, look, you went to the Ministry, you can go to the Ministry today in Universal or Epic Universe theme park, the big expansion they just dropped at Universal Studios Orlando. Go check it out. Go check it out. He took my thing.